So, how to make future assumptions. This part is probably one of the most difficult parts to teach as a modeling instructor because it is very difficult to generalize estimation techniques for any financial modeling forecast. And this is the part where opinions, each individual person's opinions may differ. It is mainly because number one, each industry and companies, they are always under different situations. And number two, even if the situations or the companies are the same, analysts, bankers, or consultants, they may have different styles of approaching to forecasting. And everybody has a different, access to available resources. But we've tried to generalize it as much as possible, but yeah, we keep noting that it could be very different by each financial model. But what would I say is that the most basic approach would be inquiring to the company. So if you're doing a financial model for a company, the best practice is to ask the company. For example, if you're trying to estimate the price trends in the future, the best practice would be to ask the company whether if they're investor relations people, or if you know somebody in the company that's related to the price settings, asking them would be the best practice. There would not be anything better than that. But the problem is that in most cases they won't tell you, or you won't have access to company employees. So in those cases, what consultants and bankers usually do is they conduct expert interviews. So they reach out to expert interview matching platforms like GLG, ThirdBridge, GuidePoint, or something like that, and they will introduce you to somebody relevant. And of course, the interviewees' names would be anonymous, so they will be willing to tell you information as long as it's not confidential. But the problem with that is that it's very expensive, very, very expensive. It starts from $1,500 usually per hour. So unless you are very well funded, it's very difficult to conduct an expert interview whenever you have some assumptions to make. Another approach that you can do is you can do a lot of research. You can do a lot of Googling, you could go into Google, or you could use a lot of equity research materials. Also, in many cases, there are papers or research institutes that publish research papers, and there can be very relevant data in those papers from time to time. Benchmarking is also one of the most frequently used techniques when forecasting financial models. Sometimes you benchmark your competitors. So, for example, if it's the price, you can benchmark your competitors' price trends. Also, you can benchmark other countries. For example, if you're trying to forecast prices for the US, but if, let's say, Japan has market trends that go 5 years earlier, you can benchmark Japan's price trends for the past 5 years. Also, sometimes if you don't have any relevant companies or relevant countries, you can always benchmark other industries. So if you wanted to know the price trends for the Botox market, if you don't have any relevant cases, we can go to, let's say, the dental implant market, which sounds very different, but maybe the price ranges, the price changes can be very similar because the number of players and the market share distribution back then was very similar to the situation that the Botox industry is in right now. So benchmarking, we always have to consider benchmarking. Number 5, We can always use historical growth rates, especially when the historical growth rates are very stable. So let's say that we've analyzed margins. So gross profit margins are usually very stable. Of course, it depends by company, but usually they're very stable. So let's say that a single company has gross profit margins of 80% each year for the past 5 years. In that case, it's very likely that gross profit margins remain 80% for the next 5 years as well. So in those cases, when the historical analysis is very stable, we can do a simple average of the historical growth, or we can leave out any outliers if there's a justifiable reason. Of course, number 5 is one of the most simple approaches to financial modeling, and we will use it very frequently in our future courses as well.